Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News Weekend. There's been an increased interest in the Arctic in recent years from countries like Russia and China. Not to mention recent talk from the United States that Canada must enhance its northern defense capabilities to help protect North America's security. Now a new report is highlighting how First Nations in the Yukon contribute to Arctic security and the challenges they face in their efforts to protect their communities. Sarah Connor starts us off tonight with a breakdown of that report.
The APTN Yukon region in the North American and Arctic Defense and Security Network is calling for greater collaboration between First Nations and decision makers on Arctic security. The report, which includes input from First Nations leaders, technical experts, and others, was sparked following an incident in early 2023 when an unidentified flying object, initially thought to be a foreign surveillance balloon, was shot down over First Nations territory. The incident caused confusion as government agencies failed to provide impacted First Nations with timely, accurate information as events unfolded. Beyond that, the report found the Yukon has a lot of strategic importance in matters of Arctic security, from its road and air networks to its proximity to Alaska and the Arctic Ocean. But it says military investment in the territory is sparse, and First Nations have been largely excluded or under-involved in decisions surrounding defense and security policy in the north. It also found the Yukon's Canadian Rangers need more support and resources. First Nations often lead search and rescue operations, but are rarely treated as formal partners by other agencies, and that better infrastructure in First Nations communities could strengthen northern defense planning. The report calls for formal information sharing and co-planning protocols between First Nations and the National Department of Defense, and more federal funding for a defense role within First Nations governments. Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
4 First Nations within the Niwin, Wendat, Animoc, or Four Winds Partnership signed a memorandum of understanding with the province of Manitoba on Tuesday for the twinning of the TransCanada Highway. According to the partnership, the MOU will see the integration of Anishinaabe laws into the project. APTN Sierra Bettens has this report from Washek-Onigum Nation near Kenora.
Here at the Washek-Onigum Nation's Roundhouse, leaders from Manitoba join leaders from 4 Treaty 3 First Nations in a historic ceremony.
The 4 communities that are part of this partnership and us as the Manitoba government signed this agreement to work together to twin the TransCanada. It looks so beautiful here on the Ontario side. Now we want to catch up and maybe surpass Ontario on the Manitoba side.
On Tuesday, Manitoba Treaty 3 Grand Chief Francis Kavanagh and chiefs from the Four Winds communities signed a memorandum of understanding they say incorporates Anishinaabe laws into twinning part of the TransCanada Highway. The plan is to connect a 16-kilometer stretch of the highway near the Manitoba-Ontario boundary.
Anishinaabe usually use things in 4. So I heard the environmental, the economic, the health and safety piece, and then of course the respect. And so those are the things that we'll keep in mind.
Shoal Lake 40 First Nation councillor Billy Wape says the MOU marks a historic shift in Manitoba's approach to consultation.
In prior years, consultation was done with a letter, sending it out and seeing if we're going to say yes or no. With this process, they're working with us on a weekly basis to move the project to where it needs to be.
The project will be guided by Manitowaki Ina'a Ko Ni Gawin, an Anishinaabe law describing how to live with the earth in a good way. Chris Skeed is the chief of Washek-Onigum.
Our laws are sanctioned from Creator. They're not derived from like a courtroom. The direction comes from our ancestors, those spirits who will guide us in the right way. Obviously comes from the lands, the waters, the air, the animals.
The Niwin Wendat, or Four Winds Partnership, was formed in 2018. It includes Shoal Lake 40, Waskaganish Bay, Nisatchewan, and Washek-Onigum First Nations. Together, they developed the harmonized impact assessment to bring Anishinaabe knowledge into the project planning process. Skeed says it involves extensive consultations with elders and community and takes additional environmental concerns into account.
Maybe there was portions of the mapping that may have went through kind of a water crossing, a swamp where, we go there to pick our medicines, or, perhaps it would displace some type of animals or the ecosystem.
Following the ceremony, the leaders met again to discuss the next steps.
Formalizing a bit more of the steps of the relationship, including some funding conversations. And then from there, like I said, as soon as we can get from the design phase to shovels in the ground, I think everybody will feel good about that.
Leaders from both sides say the partnership could serve as a model for other jurisdictions.
It's historic in nature. It's huge. It's a consultation at the end of the day. That's what it is.
Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Wajak Onigam Nation, Ontario.
Two Indigenous leaders in Manitoba have united to push for economic prosperity for their people. APTN Sav Jonesa reports.
The Southern Chiefs Organization and Manitoba Métis Federation say they are partnering to advance economic reconciliation for their people. They signed a memorandum of understanding early Wednesday, declaring their intent to pursue an Indigenous-led economic development strategy. SCO Grand Chief Jerry Daniels says it's a powerful statement of unity.
The MOU we are about to sign is more than an agreement between SCO and MMF. It is a commitment to lead together, to prosper together, and to protect the lands and waters for generations to come.
SCO represents 32 First Nations in Manitoba, and the MMF represents tens of thousands of Red River Métis across Canada. The partnership comes on the heels of Bill C-5, also known as the One Canadian Economy Act, which will fast-track major natural resource projects. The MOU outlines a 5-year framework they will follow to ensure their priorities are reflected in those and other development projects.
We are positioning ourselves as active partners, ensuring that First Nations and Red River Métis communities are not just consulted, but are central to the decision-making process.
The two will work together to push for jobs, trade opportunities, sustainable forestry, and harvesting practices. They hope that will result in lasting revenue for generations to come. MMF President David Chartrand says he's been waiting for a partnership like this for almost 3 decades.
Premier Kino, I assure you, will pick this up quickly. When the SCO 31, 32 chiefs come together with my cabinet, province-wide elected, and we join forces to protect our natural resources, our harvesting, and all those that come beside it, it'll be a force to reckon with. We will not just let somebody else decide the fate of the future.
Chartrand hopes their unity will show other Indigenous nations what is possible when they work together.
We'll have differences, trust me, but we'll also have more compatibility than differences. And when we find those differences, we'll find solutions to them, and we'll find how we make, because it'll be the betterment for each of us, not just for himself or me. It'll be for our people.
The MMF and SCO also plan to create a natural resource committee to set rules to ensure sustainable wildlife harvesting. Sav Jonesa, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Smudging ceremonies are now officially allowed in all the Alberta Court of King's Bench courthouses. APTN's Chris Stewart spoke to a long-time Indigenous court worker who applauds the move and says the decision should have been made much sooner.
Lucy Johnson has been an Indigenous advocate court worker for decades. And up until now, she's had to go before a judge or judiciary and ask permission for her family to be allowed to perform a smudging ceremony. With the recent decision to allow smudging by filling out an online form at least a week in advance, she welcomes the news, but wishes it was done 20 or 30 years ago.
About damn time. We need things in that courtroom to ease the flow of tragedy, of crime, and anything that we can do to help the families wholeheartedly, respectfully, and in our Cree culture, that's a blessing to us.
Johnson believes the ceremony will help prevent conflict between families inside the courts.
When I first heard about it, I called 3 of our families here in Musqueam and I asked them, would you be interested in speaking on what would have happened if you were able to smudge, or if you were able to have the feather because it balances in the courtroom. No two families will be fighting if, the respect of an eagle feather or the sweetgrass and the smudge sitting in the courtroom.
Johnson says removing this barrier benefits families with so much they already have on their minds inside a courthouse atmosphere.
One less thing for the families to worry about, because sometimes, people don't understand who we are and the importance of smudging, the importance of what they need to do to carry a file through there, whether it's defense or whether it's the offender's family who need that extra support.
Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Musqueam, Alberta.
Time for a quick break, and then we'll bring you the story of a 9-year-old golf phenom. Stick around. Welcome back. A 9-year-old golfer from the Birdtail Sioux Dakota Nation in southwestern Manitoba recently scored a spot in the top 10 at the Champion of Champions tournament in Northern Ireland. APTN Sierra Bettens spoke with golf prodigy Connor Hanska and his dad Doug about competing with the world's best junior golfers.
At 2 years old, not long after he learned to walk, Connor Hanska learned to swing a golf club.
I myself used to play competitive golf within Golf Manitoba, so just me practicing and getting out there and playing, he just kind of tagged along, and he kind of grew up on the golf course, really.
The best part is that it's just fun playing holes after hole.
His dad and his biggest supporter, Doug Hanska, soon realized he was raising a golf prodigy.
Like, I didn't even realize how good he was until the guys kind of like, wow, you might have the next Tiger Woods on your hands there. And even as a 6-year-old, he qualified for the Canadian Golf Nationals. And so that's when we kind of realized, well, hey, like, he's pretty special on the greens.
The 9-year-old athlete from Birdtail Sioux Dakota Nation recently returned from Northern Ireland, where he made the top 10 in his age category at the Champion of Champions tournament. It brought 250 of the world's best junior golfers from over 40 countries to compete at the Lochran Resort in Enniskillen.
He did really well and to place top 10, for us as parents, it's like pretty surreal, and like we were, we're still taking it in and trying to process it, cheering him, it's just another round for him.
With over 3,000 followers on TikTok, Connor has fans from around the world. After qualifying for the Champion of Champions tournament, generous sponsors lined up to support him.
We had multiple organizations reach out to us, and they want to help him with his journey, and it just was like a ripple effect. There's thousands of kids that compete for those spots every year, so for him to be one was really amazing.
Now back home, Connor has become a local celebrity.
My mom picked us up from the airport and was bringing us home, and she stopped at the local ice cream shop there, and even there, like, people recognized him right on the spot. They're like, hey, weren't you supposed to be in Ireland? And started asking him about his trip.
He shares his practice routine with APTN.
Almost every single day, but take one day off and then go.
Hey, so pretty busy.
Yeah.
Aside from his stellar swing, his dad says Connor's positive attitude makes him a one-of-a-kind athlete.
His sportsmanship is, it's the highest I've seen out there. Like, win or lose, he's always encouraging kids to try their best.
When asked what advice he'd give to other aspiring golfers, Connor had this to say.
To keep your head up.
His family continues to share his progress and achievements on TikTok at Hanska Golf.
Thank you for your love and support.
Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
I'd like to get out on the course with Connor. It's only August, and though August is almost halfway over, it's not too late to get out and enjoy the summer. There to help you find your next adventure is Explore Indigenous, a new location at the Forks in Winnipeg, showcasing all the Indigenous tourism experiences across Manitoba. And while you're there, you can take a guided tour of the unique history surrounding the area from an Indigenous point of view with Turtle Tours. Here's our reporter, Sav Jonesa.
Exploring Manitoba might be one way to enjoy the rest of your summer, especially when it's coupled with an Indigenous point of view.
In a world where you can Google anything, I feel like we might have lost the art of oral storytelling and experiential learning. So that's something we're trying to bring back here. You know, you can feel, smell, touch, and see all of the stories we're telling you while you're on the tour.
Turtle Tours is a new Indigenous-owned guided walking tour at the Forks in Winnipeg. They'll teach you all you need to know about the historic location where the Red and Assiniboine rivers meet.
We just heard that this was a need. This was something that people were looking for. With people staying in their own backyard this year, we want something more local. And what better than history? I think that's a new thing in tourism. Not really new, but something that's becoming more important is hearing history and experiencing something that you walk away with more knowledge rather than just an experience.
Turtle Tours owner Ashley Smith says they'll walk you through 6,000 years of history. She says learning more about the land and Indigenous cultures around you can change the way you view Winnipeg today.
Some of my favorite facts are just the long history of the different tribes that were here and what led them here. There's different prophecies that brought them here, and so we share a lot about that. We share a lot about the way the history was and how this has always been a meeting place and a place of peace, and that it continues to be that way.
Tour guide Ella Flatt McMahon is a history major who says knowing the past is an act of resistance and reclamation.
Behind me, I have The Eighth and Final Fire by Jamie Isaac, and it's inspired by an Anishinaabe prophecy in which settlers were to come to our land, and there was going to be a complex relationship between settlers, Indigenous people, and the land. And elders teach that humanity will reach a crossroads where we have to choose to start respecting the land and all of its inhabitants to keep all of our safety and to stay alive.
More than 4 million people visit the Forks every year. It's why Indigenous Tourism Manitoba CEO Holly Spence is excited to open up Explore Indigenous at the site to showcase businesses like Turtle Tours.
The main purpose of the Explore Indigenous Center is to drive more business and more traffic to our authentically owned Indigenous tourism experiences.
Promoted businesses and artisans are certified through the Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada's Original accreditation program. It requires businesses to be at least 51% Indigenous owned, and their offerings must meet high standards.
So that consumers know that they're getting an exceptional experience and an exceptional product.
At Explore Indigenous, you can find out about all the Indigenous tourism in Manitoba in one spot. Many experiences are available year-round and leave their adventurers with lifelong memories.
They leave saying, you know, we lived here for 20 years and we had no idea this history.
Sav Jonesa, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Indigenous broadcasters from around the globe, including APTN, are gathering in Taipei. Details on that and more still to come. Welcome back. Artificial intelligence is offering a new way to learn at home. Some AI models have begun offering translation and the teaching of Indigenous languages. While this can be a positive in the efforts to revitalize Indigenous languages, our reporter Savannah Craig looks at the threat of non-Indigenous companies being at the forefront of this technology.
Google Translate started offering the first Indigenous language in Canada last fall. Inuktitut includes 31 dialects spoken by Inuit in Canada, the United States, Greenland, and Russia. While there is celebration in expanding the presence of Indigenous languages in New Age technology, there can be harms.
They're taking data that really, number one, it's given to them by governments, which I have a problem with. Because they really should be consulting the Inuit. If they're going to benefit from that, there should be some kind of return for Inuit.
Kurt Etiel says companies in the Silicon Valley are harvesting data to produce Indigenous language AI models.
So there's lots of repositories of Inuit language in museums, in archives, in documents that governments basically make available. It's public domain right? If it's publicly owned, then, big corporations can go and harvest that and be able to use it for anything that they want.
ETL developed his own Inuktitut AI application called Anyai. It provides instant translations, interpretations, and is available to convert text, audio, and video. The platform only offers translations in South Baffin Inuktitut, with the goal of expanding to offer other Inuktitut dialects.
If we're able to use our app to be able to communicate with our cousins in Greenland, all the way to Alaska and Russia, we have lots of relatives, the language becomes, not a barrier anymore, and that we can actually speak to those dialects as if we're a native speaker.
Michael Running Wolf is the co-founder of the First Languages AI Reality, which aims to revitalize Indigenous languages through AI.
With AI, you can have this opportunity to practice while you're at home, which you would normally require have a speaker in the house or an elder, and this plugs that gap.
Running Wolf says in order to build AI, it needs to be fed data.
We are highly sensitive to any community, withdrawing their consent. We want to be as ethical as possible, and so we don't take public data sets which may have been taken unethically.
To respect data sovereignty and allow Indigenous communities to be at the table, ETL wants Indigenous language AI models to be Indigenous-led.
At the end of the day, we're encouraging government and policymakers to support us, support small Indigenous companies so that it actually builds equity in our communities.
Savannah Craig, APTN National News, Ottawa.
And finally, for us, Indigenous broadcasters from across the globe headed to Taipei for the World Indigenous Broadcasters Networks Conference. The annual conference brings together Indigenous media leaders from Canada, New Zealand, Taiwan, and beyond. This year's conference will focus on international news sharing, digital innovation, and AI and the network's future. It's also set to honor the 20th anniversary of this year's host, Taiwan Indigenous Television. The conference runs from August 12th to the 19th. APTN is also a member of the World Indigenous Broadcasters Network. Didn't get the invite for that one. That's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this weekend. You can find a whole lot more over on our website, aptnnews.ca. You can also visit our APTN News YouTube page. I'm Dennis Ward, Marcy Miigwech. Thanks for being with us. Creason will be here at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday with your first look at the week's news. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.